Hi, digital imaging. Lulu, up, sit. Here I am with my dog Louie. I hope that your first week went well, transitioning online. Here I am in my um, home office that my husband and my daughter is kind of taking over now with all of her toys. And we keep calling Louie our work dog because he's working right beside us, and it's nice to have that companionship all day. So here we are in module 5. We have this module and then module 6 left. So things are starting to not wrap up, but kind of accelerate towards the end. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is very exciting. This module is packed full of information. We get into Photoshop and InDesign in this module. This is covering digital photo manipulation. So I cover some digital photography basics in terms of how you can use Photoshop as an editing tool. And then getting into InDesign in terms of how you can take those photos and put them into a publication that you have laid out. We're being very, very safe in terms of how we use InDesign. If you take graphic design next year or in the future, we'll be kind of filling in where with Photoshop and InDesign where this class leads off. So being more sophisticated with both softwares, but you're going to learn a ton in this module in terms of Photoshop. It's kind of like a Photoshop crash course, and that continues on into module 6 too. The main project in this module is a photo zine, so kind of like a photo magazine, where you're going to show me a before and an after in terms of an original photo and then how you manipulate it. And all of those instructions are in the assignment. The assignment's called No Cats, No Flowers, a before and after photo zine. So you want to make sure that you read all of those PDFs, watch all of the videos. Again, this is a really, really kind of jam-packed module full of documents and information, and you want to make sure that you're hitting all of it. Before I talk a little bit more about the content of your zine, I just want to hit on what's coming up. So week 1, you have a learning journal due at the end of the week. There's a quiz due at the end of the week. You have a reading, you have Who Knew It tutorials, and you have a series of videos that I made. And the videos that I made are kind of like specific to this project. So if you email me and you're like, I don't know what, you didn't mention any of this, like, you probably didn't watch the videos. Watch the videos in their entirety, and I'll redirect you back to them if I need to. And this first week, you should be taking photos as well. And again, a little bit more on that. In week 2, there's no learning journal, but there's a discussion forum participation due by Wednesday. So that's something that you want to kind of put on your calendar. We were going to do a workshop together about copyright and image copyright, like what happens when a famous band just finds an image online and is like, yeah, let's use this for our album cover. It was a really, really fun workshop. Instead, I've linked to a website about 5 famous copyright cases, and some of those we discussed in the workshop. But it's really interesting seeing how people, with our access to a plethora of images, like I know that some of you were doing this for your poster backgrounds, just like Googling whatever, finding an image, and then using it in your project. That is illegal, but you're in an educational sphere, so you are protected in some sense, but this workshop would have covered all of that. And that's something that just will continue to come up in the design realm if you're pursuing that. And week 2 also gets into more InDesign videos and tutorials that I've made, so you want to make sure that you watch those in their entirety. In terms of the content of your zine, of your photos, I wanted to give a suggestion If you're like, I don't really know what I want to do, because I don't want, and you will read this in the description, I don't want like photos of your dog. I don't want photos of like your fake plants or whatever, or like every chair in your house. You know, and in the past, I've had the focus has been on architecture and public signage. And the reasoning for that is that both of those things generally are angular, have and require right angles. And that's something that almost always needs to be manipulated in Photoshop in adjusting objects so that they appear solid and have right angles. Um, so what I was thinking, because this is the crazy time that we're living in, is that you all produce a quarantine, documenting what this time is like in some way. So for example, and this is something that I've been doing myself in my neighborhood, and then I was happy to see in the Carroll County Times today, I took a very similar picture to this one. But I've been walking around my neighborhood and just documenting through photography what signs, things that are closed. Like this playground is like totally wrapped in like orange fencing. You can't use anything. There's caution tape. And this is what the Carroll County Times photographer has done too. In schools are closed, marquee signs. And in your photos, you don't want any people. So that's something to keep in mind. If you, for some reason, cannot leave your house, then I'd be happy to brainstorm ideas with you. But again, we're looking for things that have right angles. Maybe you document like all of the art in your house or something. But again, think about how you could kind of document this time as being stuck inside or very limited in terms of travel. If you can walk around your neighborhood and find signs on business doors or something, that's another thing that I've been doing, is just taking photos of kind of handwritten notes saying we're open for carry out only. Do that. I think that would be a really great kind of way to document and also just connect in terms of our projects. Some other tips: if you do happen to get out of the house to take your photos, like you're out and about and you're like driving around to take your photographs, get out of the car to take your photos. I've seen this in the past where a student has taken photos from their car and then they don't get out of the car, so I see like their dashboard and their steering wheel. No, that was like an immediate kind of F. No, watch out for solar flares. So if you're taking a photograph and the sun is right in the frame and like kind of blowing everything out in terms of light, that's not a good composition. So no solar flares. Leave the sun out. The nice thing about our cameras, especially using a smartphone camera, is you have it on you all the time and you can move around. Also, another thing to keep in mind is taking your photos in portrait orientation. So like this instead of this, okay? Because the way that you are going to lay things out in InDesign is like this. So if you take your portraits or your photos in portrait orientation rather than landscape, you will be much better off in terms of using when you get to the InDesign component. You also want to make sure that you're taking your photos at the highest definition resolution as possible, so that they are bigger, so that when you get to InDesign, you don't have to scale your photos up and then they might get distorted. That's another thing that I've seen in past student projects. As always, if you have any questions, reach out to me. You can schedule a virtual appointment with me either by the phone or Zoom, and we'll go from there. But if you go the quarantine route, I'd be really into it. And I wish you all well, and I hope that everyone is healthy and happy.